Hello, this is my recipe for Cajun red beans. Start with 3 cups of red beans in a nice deep pot. You'll be putting lots of stuff on top of it and expect the beans to at least double in size. So be conscious of that. Cover the red beans with water to approximately 2 times the depth. Put on the stove on high. Now what I typically like to do is add a little bit of crab oil, a little bit of Cajun seasoning at this point, just to infuse the outside with a tad of flavor. You're going to be pouring most of this off, but it's still a good idea. So the whole idea is to bring the water up to just about boiling. Leave it sealed, turn the heat off, and you're going to let them soak for an hour to an hour and a half. This gets the outside nice and soft without actually cooking the beans, and that's where you will actually begin with the recipe. A quick shot of the beans. You can see that I put in the Cajun seasoning, around 3 tablespoons. Again, you're pouring most of this off, so that'll blend in. I'm going to give it a quick swirl with a spoon. Just to mix up the juice a bit. I'm going to put a top on this and let it get hot for, I guess around 6-7 minutes. And again, I'll then, as long as it's nice and hot, I'll leave the lid on and let it just sit for an hour to an hour and a half with the flame off. As a quick aside, if you don't have enough water, you can always add a little bit of water. The idea is to cover the beans. So I've added about 2 cups of water just because the beans were expanding that much. So yeah. So now that the beans have soaked for about an hour, hour and a half, I'm going to rinse them, clean the pot. Just want to soften the outsides and get rid of all the red bean funk as much as possible that's associated with the skins. So next stage is dumping to a colander, rinsing, and then putting the beans back in the pot. So beans in colander after rinsing. So let's talk about the spicing and what goes in. It's really quite easy. I personally prefer andouille sausage. It looks like about 2 cups. So I take 3 links and cut them into 1/2-inch pieces. This is for cooking. And also we have the Holy Trinity, which is bell pepper, onion, and celery. Also a little bit of garlic and parsley. But at its core, it's onion, bell pepper, and celery. That's the Holy Trinity. That's what makes Cajun food taste the way it does. So if you're making this with raw ingredients as opposed to what I can get here in New Orleans, say 2 bell peppers, 2 onions, and either 1 really big piece of head of celery, or 2 smaller ones that you're going to cut into pieces. Now most of the Holy Trinity is going to go into the pot and is literally going to be boiled down into unctuous mush that is going to cook into the red beans. So step 1 is I add the sausage on top of the beans. Then I add the Holy Trinity on top of that. Then I top it off with water. So now I've got water, I'd say about 1 inch from the top. It is just chock full of stuff that's going to boil down. Now let's talk a little bit about the spice. You're going to use 2 crushed bay leaves. Notice they start dry. I crushed them in my hand just to soften a little bit. I have a Cajun bell pepper, which you can't buy in the stores. They're really tiny and they're really just wonderful flavor. And I boil that in for flavoring. If you want to throw in a fresh Tabasco pepper, just one, that'll work too. Or throw in maybe 3 or 4 squirts of Tabasco sauce. I use minced garlic, I'd say around a tablespoon, and I don't know, maybe about 3 tablespoons, 4 tablespoons of, I prefer the Prudhomme magic seasoning one for Blackened Redfish. Zataran's works just as well. Well, maybe not quite as well, but it's good. Both ways are good. So, bay leaves are in, kind of pushed below the surface. You can see that I have about a tablespoon or so of minced garlic. You'll see the Cajun bell pepper pieces cut really, really small because they're really, really spicy on top. And now I'm going to bring this to a boil, and probably with the lid on just to get it up there faster. And then I'm going to take it down to a simmer with the lid off. The idea is that you want it to become denser. Not too dense, but denser. Flame's now on. I patted the everything just subsurface. And I'm going to put the lid on. And that's on high. I'm going to put the timer on for about 8 minutes just to get it up to a boil, and then I'm going to take it down to a simmer. You know, this really wouldn't have tasted good having forgotten the Cajun seasoning. So now I'm going to add that. So you can see probably around 3 tablespoons for, pretty tall pot. Say 3 to 4. Zataran's is a little more concentrated, so you might want to definitely stick with 3. Be very conscious not to let the beans boil hard, because the protein coming off of everything will boil over the side of the pot very, very quickly and create a pretty bad mess. So the idea is to bring it up to just boiling, uncover it, and then let it boil down. But you will definitely see, at least initially, some foam on top, which is protein. Okay, so sneaking up on the boil, so it doesn't boil over. I guess it took me around 15 minutes. I've now lowered the temperature to about 3. I want it to gently boil, and I want that water to come off. I'd say we're going to lose at least an inch or so over the next hour. Notice I haven't really stirred it at this point. It's going to, I'll probably give it a stir maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes in. So about 30 minutes has gone by. I've lowered it to 2 so it didn't boil over, and pushed up toward the middle a bit. So 30 minutes have gone by, and now I'm going to give it its first real stir to kind of mix stuff in. And I'm just going to let it boil away. Okay, stirred it a bit, and I'll probably stir again, maybe 30 more minutes in. Another 30 minutes has gone by, and I've given it a more vigorous stir. I like the way it's boiling. and the beans are starting to look like cooked beans. Just going to let it boil for probably another 30 minutes or so. Then I'll taste and see where we are. About an hour and a half in, I just gave it another stir, and it is almost perfect. Just tasted the bean melted in my mouth. So this is the point where if you have any of the Holy Trinity left over, some fresh bell pepper, some fresh onion, some fresh celery, cut nice and fine. This is when you would throw it in with the expectation of cooking no more than 10 minutes. The idea is to give something, to give a crunch to the beans. You can also begin cooking your sausage now in anticipation of serving the meal. Okay, vegetables have now broken down into what's referred to as the pot licking, and peppers are doing wonderfully. So they're still kind of crunchy. I've got sausage that is just about done. I'll be cutting those on the bias, nice half-inch pieces, and basically we're done. Enjoy it.